Adam here, and today we're taking a deep dive into one of the most ambitious development proposals currently sitting in the planning system of one of Greater Brisbane's councils, the project known as Infinity Planet. You may have seen the renders, the headlines, and the big numbers: a $2.6 billion tourism city, millions of visitors, thousands of jobs, and a promise to transform Moreton Bay into a global destination. But instead of focusing on hype, today we're going to unpack the actual documents lodged with council, the same ones planners, councillors, and state agencies are now assessing. And then critically, we're going to step back and ask a bigger question. When projects like this have been proposed elsewhere, overseas, and right here in Queensland, how have they actually played out? Because history doesn't tell us what will happen, but it does tell us what could happen. But before we get into planning rules, zoning changes, and risk, it's worth clearly laying out what the final Infinity Planet precinct is being pitched as. At full build-out, the proposal describes Infinity Planet as a master-planned tourism and entertainment city built on a single site designed to function as a standalone destination rather than just a single attraction. It's located at 235 and 245 Bartholomew Road, plus an adjoining lot immediately west of the Bruce Highway near the Steve Irwin Way interchange in Elimbah, in the Moreton Bay LGA just north of Brisbane. According to the material lodged with council, the vision includes a large theme park and entertainment precinct, expected to be the main drawcard, with a mix of rides, attractions, immersive experiences, and event programming pitched at both domestic and international visitors. Promotional material describes it as an outdoor world of excitement inspired by glowable icons. The site will also feature a global cultural and experiential precinct built around country-themed or culture-themed pavilions with international food, retail, performances and exhibitions, similar in concept to a permanent World Expo or Global Village. A major events and performance venue, sometimes referred to as City Hall, capable of hosting large concerts, festivals, conventions, sporting events and major cultural shows. A substantial on-site accommodation offering, including multiple hotels across different price points, short-term accommodation, and tourist park-style stays intended to convert day trippers into overnight visitors. An experiential retail and dining precinct, not pitched as a traditional shopping centre, but as destination retail designed to be part of the visitor experience rather than the primary reason people come. A business innovation and technology component, including office space, research and technology uses, and space for startups, creatives and international collaboration, pitched as a way to diversify employment beyond tourism alone. All of this would be supported by significant internal infrastructure, including internal transport, large parking areas, public spaces, landscaping, and purpose-built servicing, effectively functioning like a small privately developed town focused on tourism and events. At present, the land is used for strawberry and macadamia nut cultivation, with scattered dwellings and sheds. The development application is DA255741, and the following point is really important. This is not an application to build Infinity Planet tomorrow. What's being lodged is a preliminary approval with a variation request. In plain English, the applicant is first asking council to rewrite how the planning scheme applies to this land before any detailed buildings are approved. Under the confirmation notice issued by council, the application seeks approval, in principle, for an extremely broad range of uses, including tourist attractions, major sport, recreation and entertainment facilities, function facilities and theatres, hotels and short-term accommodation, tourist parks, multiple dwellings, offices, research and technology industry uses, and all of this would sit under a custom planning framework created specifically for this site. This goes far beyond what's currently allowed under the existing rural zoning. Let's get to the heart of the proposal. The lodged variation document asks Moreton Bay Council to amend its strategic framework to formally designate the site as the Elimbah North Major Tourism Area. It would also be classified as a special area, alongside places like Old Petretown and Woodfordia. The planning documents explicitly argue that the scale and intensity of the proposal cannot be integrated into other place types and therefore require a bespoke planning code. In other words, instead of the development fitting the planning scheme is being reshaped to fit the development. That's not unheard of, but it is a big call. The proposed variation maps show just how dramatic the physical change could be. They allow for building heights of up to 39 metres across much of the site and around 21 metres in other areas. For context, surrounding rural land is capped at around 8.5 metres, so we're talking about buildings equivalent to 10 to 12 stories emerging out of what is currently a low-rise rural landscape. This alone would permanently alter the character of the area, regardless of whether the full Infinity Planet vision is ever delivered. The applicant is RHC City Proprietary Limited, with the planning work prepared by Infinitum Partners, a Brisbane-based planning consultancy. RHC City was established in 2022 and positions itself as a master developer of large-scale, internationally focused tourism and entertainment precincts. The company is linked to the Negwin Group, chaired by Ramin Ahmadi, who is also identified as the founder and CEO of RHC City. In its planning material and public statement, the applicant points to international experience and global partnerships as a key strength of the project, including references to involvement in major overseas developments and an intention to attract foreign capital and international operators. The project has also been promoted as having early overseas investor interest, including a memorandum of understanding with Taiwan-based AIM Group, described as an initial strategic partnership rather than a confirmed funding commitment. At this stage, though, Council is being asked to approve permanent changes to the planning scheme based largely on future partnerships and intended delivery, rather than on a track record of comparable projects completed in Australia. That doesn't make the proposal unviable, but it does increase delivery risk. The economic impact assessment forecasts just under 2,500 construction jobs, including both direct and indirect jobs, over 4,500 ongoing operational jobs, between 1 and 1.2 million visitors annually, billions of dollars in long-term economic output, but buried in the fine print are some very important caveats. The report explicitly states that these figures are projections, not guarantees. Outcomes depend on staging, market demand, financing, and future approvals, and there is no warranty that forecasts will eventuate. This is standard language for economic modelling, but it matters because councils are often asked to accept permanent planning change based on temporary assumptions. The Ecological Assessment Report prepared by Range Environmental identifies several key issues. Most notably, the site contains mapped koala habitat trees, with koalas identified as a key species of concern. The proposed development would involve extensive vegetation clearing, including removal of habitat trees, with mitigation and offsets proposed rather than avoidance. It also makes it clear that this assessment supports a variation request only, not a final development footprint. So while impacts are acknowledged, the exact scale of future clearing is deferred to later applications. The Bushfire Management Report identifies the site as needing significant bushfire hazard classes, large asset protection zones, strict access, egress and building design controls, and it includes a blunt but honest statement. No mitigation strategy can guarantee survival in an extreme bushfire event. That's particularly significant when you're talking about high visitor numbers, major events, and large crowds unfamiliar with the area. This isn't a theoretical risk, it's a real planning constraint. One detail I found when looking through the documents is that the application was initially deemed not properly made in November due to unpaid assessment fees, before being rectified and formally accepted in late December of 2025. It is now under impact assessment, subject to public notification for at least 30 business days, and being referred to multiple state agencies. So this is far from being approved, and it's not being fast-tracked. This is where the broader context really matters. Infinity Planet is not a completely new idea. Variations of this concept, large master plan tourism and entertainment precincts, have been tried before. Some have succeeded, some have struggled, and some never made it off the drawing board. Launched in 1997, Dubai Global Village in the UAE is a large-scale pavilion-based cultural and retail destination. By the 2023-24 season, it reported around 10 million visitors. But three contextual factors are worth considering. It operates seasonally, reducing year-round operating risk. It sits on one of the world's busiest tourism hubs, and it benefits from long-term government support and policy alignment. So we can see that the concept works, but in a very specific environment. Epcot opened in Walt Disney World in the US in 1982, designed as a permanent World's Fair. It includes national pavilions, cultural showcases, and heavy corporate sponsorship. It has survived and evolved, but not without pavilion closures, sponsor withdrawals, major reinvestment cycles, and it only works because it sits inside the largest theme park resort on Earth. Even here, the model has required constant renewal. But it's important to examine similar projects that have failed, both overseas and locally. We'll start with Dubai Parks and Resorts. Opened in 2016, this massive multi-park master-planned entertainment precinct struggled almost immediately. Within a few years, attendance fell short of projections and losses ran into the hundreds of millions of dollars. This led to the operator undergoing restructures and asset sales. And this was Dubai, not a marginal tourism market. The lesson? Scale amplifies risk just as much as it amplifies potential reward. Closer to home, the parallels become more uncomfortable. In the late 2010s, Sanad Capital acquired a site on the Sunshine Coast with the plan to establish a major entertainment destination, Glenview Water Park. The company later entered liquidation and the project collapsed before construction could even begin. Then there's Kelly Slater Wave Park in Coolum. Despite strong branding and planning approval which was granted in 2021, the project stalled due to cost escalation, financing and insurance pressures. The plans were abandoned and a large portion of the land was sold to council about 2 years later. It's a great example of where even after approval, delivery is not guaranteed. Considering these examples, we can see that land and approvals often come before funding certainty. Construction, insurance, and operating costs are where reality can crush initial optimism. One thing to keep in mind is that planning scheme changes are permanent, while business models are not. If the Elimbah North major tourism area is created, that zoning remains, even if the original applicant sells, the vision is scaled back, or only part of the project is ever delivered. That's the real considerations Moreton Bay City Council is currently deliberating over. This isn't simply about whether Infinity Planet is a good idea, it's about whether rural land should be permanently reclassified for a speculative mega project, whether projected economic benefits justify environmental and hazard trade-offs, and whether history suggests this scale of project is realistic in this location. Supporters point to jobs, tourism diversification, and Olympic-era opportunity, while skeptics point to past failures, the risk of the zoning setting a precedent, and long-term planning consequences. Both positions are grounded in real evidence. Infinity Planet could become a major new tourism anchor contributing to the local economy over the long term and a defining project for the region. Or it could become a partially delivered precinct and another example of ambition outpacing demand. Right now, both outcomes are possible. And that's why this assessment phase, as dry as it sounds, matters far more than the renders. I'll link the development application tracker below so that you can read all the documents yourself. And as submissions open, agency responses come in and council deliberates, you can keep up to date with everything, as well as many more plans, issues and topics from across Greater Brisbane right here on the Brisbane channel. If you're new, you may not know that we also put out weekly updates to keep you in the loop with what's happening right across Greater Brisbane. Here's the latest weekly update video. Now you have no reason to not know what's going on in this part of the world. See ya.